Hello, Aaron. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Doing fine.
Well, this is part two, I guess.
Yeah. It's like a here we go again.
Yeah, I'd like to publicly apologize to you for my mishap.
Well,
But
you know how it is, man. When it comes to anything electronic, it can happen,
it could be a little sticky from time to time.
and it's always in the most inopportune times.
Yeah. This actually should be episode 18. But given my I don't know, like say screw up. Being new to this type of platform and stuff like that, it just trying to work out the bugs, man.
Oh, that's all you got to do. I mean, that's all you can do.
Yeah. And I want to give people a little bit of insight what you sort of kind of do.
Sort of, kind of do.
Yeah. This guy here, I guess, is one of the renowned Elvis impersonators in the area.
Yeah.
One of the, from what I hear, the best. So.
Well, as long as people keep thinking that, then I'll keep on doing it.
It keeps people coming in.
It makes people happy. That's the only thing that matters.
Oh yeah. What got you into this profession?
Well, I mean, I'd always been a huge Elvis fan, ever since I was a little kid. And, and my dad, he named me after Elvis. He gave me Elvis's middle name, from my first name. And because Mom totally shut him down on the idea of naming me Elvis, because she was a Beatles fan, so she's like, I ain't having a kid named Elvis.
Name him Paul, but
yeah,
well.
Dad couldn't stand the Beatles, so yeah, it's like, no, he's like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, but I'd always grew up listening to, Elvis and Ricky Nelson and Buddy Holly, all them guys, that Dad was a teenager in the 50s, so he grew up on all that music,
Yeah.
So, I heard it all the time growing up, and and everybody, when I was in school and stuff, everybody always, that was always my nickname. Ever since I was a little kid, everybody always called me Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of it had to do with when I was real little. My dad and mom and stuff, we would go to like the Eagles or something like that down in like Waverly, because my grandma and grandpa lived down there, and we would all go to the Eagles and stuff on certain nights, and they would be like go put an Elvis song on a jukebox, and they'd be like, well, how come? And they would tell them like, just go do it, just go put one on there. And they's like, watch what Aron does. So I'd be sitting there in the chair, and all of a sudden an Elvis song come on the jukebox. Well, I'd get up and start dancing around to it and stuff like that. And I was just little. I mean, I was kindergarten probably, little. And they'd be like, wow, like look at him go, like, and they're like, like he loves it, he's always like that, and he's always listening to it. Well, and then that kind of followed me all through all the schools that I went to, because I went to like 6, 7 different schools over the years, and but it always followed me everywhere I went. I think they're coming after us. But it always followed me everywhere I went, and stuff. And most of the kids at Paint Valley and stuff, a lot of them, if you were talking to them outside of school or something, you're like, oh, you go to school with Aron, and they'd be like, who's that? And they'd be like, Elvis. And they'd be like, oh, I know who that is, and the teachers and everybody, and they would always try to get me to do the talent show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never do it. And I'm like, no, I ain't doing that. He's like, why? He's like, we know you would win it. And I'm like, how do you know that? Because I never sang in front of nobody, except just in front of my record player. That was it,
Yeah.
And they was like, we just have a hunch, like, you got the hair, and, and you got that look and sound and everything. And it's like, you need to get up. I even had bands that were wanting, they'd be like, we'll back you up.
Yeah. If
you want to do it, bands that, played at Paint Valley and stuff. And it's like, we'll back you up. And I'm like, nah, man, I can't do it. So anyway, I went in the Army. And the Army, the whole Elvis thing kind of followed me in there the whole time I was in there and stuff, and still wouldn't sing in front of nobody. And I was home on leave, and I went to a concert. I was going to go to a concert in Chillicothe. A guy, Mike Albert, was playing there that does like the 70s Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to go see him. Well, I missed the show. I got there late.
He's pretty big too, isn't he?
He's been around for a long time.
Yep.
He's played all over the world. Yeah, he's really good. And I I hadn't got a chance to ever meet him or nothing, you know, but he was signing autographs, you know, after the show and stuff, and went there and I talked to him for a few minutes and everything, and my buddy that was with me, he told him, he's like, yeah, he said, this is the guy that's going to take your job from you. Where Mike looked at me and he's like, oh, really? And I'm like, I'm looking over at my buddy and I'm
like, oh, really?
I'm like, shut up, man. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh, yeah. Well, you know, the funny thing is, and, you know, he heard my name was Aaron, and he was like, oh, and it's spelled with one A. He's like, wow. He said, he really is like Elvis, you know? And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, so a couple years later, I'm out of the Army, you know, and he's going to be at the Ross County Fair. So I'm like, I'm going to see him this time. Mm-hmm. So I went out to Ross County Fair, and we're sitting out there watching him, you know, during the show. And he's, you know, he's up on stage with his band, and he's singing and stuff, and he gets into, like, the one part where he's getting ready to do, like, the 50s medley like Elvis would do in the 70s, you know, where he'd kind of mash together 3 or 4 of his bigger hits from the 50s. And he was there singing and stuff, and he was kind of off the stage, you know, like, you know, heading, like, toward, like, the audience and stuff, and he seen me. And I could tell by that look in his eye that he remembered exactly who I was, and I was like, uh-oh.
We're going to pin this guy.
Oh, my gosh, and he did. He got this little smile on his face, and I was like, uh-oh. I'm like, this ain't good. I'm like, so here he comes. He's singing, you know, and stuff like that. He comes up there, and he comes right straight up to me, and he grabs my wrist, and he just drags me up on the stage. There's like 350, 400 people at this thing, man. I mean, it's packed. And I'm like, oh, Lord. I'm like, man, this ain't going to happen. I'm like, he gets up there, and I'm standing there beside him on the stage, and he's sitting there singing or whatever, and all of a sudden he's in the middle of like Teddy Bear, and they kick it off, and he sings like the very first verse of it, and then he just hands me the microphone and walks away, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do, man? And so I told him, I was like, you know, I was up on stage, and I was like, well, I'm either going to have to start singing, or I'm going to sit here and look like a fool. So when the little break part come in there, and it would start, you know, the second verse was supposed to start, I started singing, you know, and that crowd, they started screaming and hollering, and they were going nuts and stuff, and I looked over at Mike or whatever while I was singing or and he's standing over there, and he's just kind of going,
oh, damn.
Yeah, like, what did I do? What did I do? And I'm like, so we got through that song, and then he come back over, and he was just like, he's like, that was awesome. He's like, let's do another one. And I'm like, okay. So he went and got me another microphone, and we ended up doing we did some of like Blue Suede Shoes or something like that, and everything. And then I went and sat down. Well, after that show, I was talking to him, and he just kept going on and on and on about it. Well, there was a guy at the show that was from the Southern Ohio Opry, and he was there to watch Mike, you know. Mm-hmm. But he come up to me, he said, I want to invite you down to the Southern Ohio Opry to do an Elvis show. And I'm like, I don't even do Elvis shows, you know. And he's like, well, you should. He's like, so why don't you come on down? Here's my name, my number. He's like, I'm the lead guitar player in the band down there. He's like, you come on down. It's like, do an Elvis show. And that was basically how I got into it. I mean, I was like, well, the crowd really liked it. I'm like, you know, so I was like, okay, I can go ahead and do that. And went down there and played a couple of times with the house band, and I was like, of course, house bands don't play everything exactly the way they're supposed to be, you know, they're more of a general way of playing it. So I was like, okay, if I can actually do this and people actually dig it, I'm going to have to get me a band together to play it the way I want it. Yeah. So I got me a band together, and, you know, and we just basically, we focused on my favorite period of Elvis, you know, from 54 to 64. I like that first decade of Elvis's music, you know. I like it all, but I always loved that early Elvis stuff, always did. And
got that, like, rockabilly.
Oh, yeah, you know, and it probably had a lot to do with the fact, you know, I was like, you know, 20, 21 years old at that time, too, you know, so I'm like, well, you know, he was the same age as I was when he was doing that, so I'm like, you know. But got a band together, and we started playing, and started getting bookings and stuff, and you know, it's been 22 years now, you know, that we've been playing shows. We played all over the country.
Rolling right along.
Playing every place we can, you know. It's been a lot of fun.
You say what, you've been to Arizona?
We've
You
been
played?
we've been to Texas and Arizona out west.
How was the reception?
Yeah,
Was that
and
pretty good?
it was the place that we played at held like 1,500 people, and it was sold out 3 weeks before we got there. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was pretty cool. You know, we played in San Antonio, Texas. We played every place except for pretty much I don't think we've played any place on the West Coast yet, like California or Washington. I don't think we've played any place out there yet, but we've played about every place else though over the years, and yeah, I mean, like I said, we're always looking for more places to play at. So
Anybody looking for a good show?
yeah,
And you get a hold of this guy.
yeah, or you know they go to our Facebook band page, Aaron Jones and the Cool Cats, and it'll have the contact number on there, the phone number for our manager.
Yeah.
You get a hold of him, he'll set it right up.
Yeah.
You know.
What's the biggest venue you've played?
Let's see. One year we played down in Memphis, and we was down there. It was for an Elvis celebration. We played the Pyramid down there, and there was like 10,000 people or something like that. They said that was in attendance that night, and it was we were just we were invited down to play I guess to be the early years of Elvis,
Yeah.
and so we did like 3 songs. And we did like That's All Right, and I think Money Honey, and it might have been Heartbreak Hotel or something. That's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
And but there was so many people there though. It was pretty cool.
That's his.
Oh yeah,
That's a lot of people, dude.
it is a lot of people, and and it's funny because the more people that's in the crowd, the easier it is for me to get out there and do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not. A lot of people's like small groups of people. It's real easy for them, but a big crowd, will, they'll freak them out.
Yeah.
I'm the exact opposite. You get a couple people in front of me, man, you can't hardly get me to do anything or say anything. But you put 1,000 people out there in front of me or whatever, and if they really get into it, I really get into it. So yeah. So.
Notice you mentioned the Cool Cats.
Yeah, that's
Who are them guys?
That's the name of the boys in the band.
It's actually a pretty cool name, though.
It is, and we spell it with K's because there was already a Cool Cats band that was playing. I don't think they did Elvis music or nothing. They were just called the Cool Cats, and we had to be different than them, so we would spell the Cool and the Cats with K's or whatever. So sets us apart a little bit. And but we got Don Stepp on the lead guitar, and he plays all them licks just like Scotty Moore did when. And we got Bubba Fritsch on bass. He's been with me for about 10 years now, so he's my long-termer, and then we got Chuck Short back on the drums back there, and he's been with me for about a year or so. And them guys, they're great.
They lay down pretty good.
Oh man, they get into it, and they're all about playing it just like in records were, and that works perfect for me.
Yeah, when you put that authenticity to it.
Oh yeah, because a lot of the people in our audiences, they grew up listening to the music, and either they grew up listening to it when it first come out, people like Dad and stuff like that, or you got people like me that grew up listening to it, later on, and then we see a lot of kids at our shows. Like, I mean, young kids to teenagers, they love it. They love Elvis because Elvis is so different now from everything else that's out there, just like he was in 1956.
Yeah.
He was different than everything that was out there then.
And he was.
And he's different than everything out there now, and the kids, there again, rock and roll was invented for kids, and
the rebellious type.
it was. I mean, it was rock and roll was teenagers' music.
Yeah.
And the kids, even today, I mean, they still resonate with that Elvis rock and roll music. They hear it, they love it, and they want to go buy more of it, you know. And me, I just kind of help them hear some of it or get an idea of what some of the stuff he did, and they go out and buy the records afterwards.
It's just that little push.
It is, and but they can sit at home and they can listen to the records all day long. But you got to be able to put a face and a show with that music. So we try to do most of the songs about like they were on the record or like he would have done them live back in the 50s.
Yeah.
But then I also throw a lot of the history of Elvis in there and about the music, some of the songs that we do and stuff, stuff that most people don't know, but they find it really interesting because after the shows, most people compliment us about the history part of it because they're like, we can go and listen to anybody doing Elvis songs, but the history is so amazing. Like they're just blown away by it.
Yeah.
And it just makes it even that more interesting to them.
It does.
And but you gotta play the songs like they're supposed to be, and the closer you play them to like the record and stuff, like people know them, the better it is.
Especially if they're listening to the records, and
right.
when you kick it out, they go, "Oh, that's a song."
Right, and they're really impressed by how close you can play it to the record.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Now there's a couple songs that I'll let the boys kind of get loose on a little bit. Like we'll do Mystery Train or something like that. And I'll let them jam on that one a little bit.
Because I think I played that song by UFO for you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got that heaviness, man.
It does, and the guys they really dig that song. So and that was the last song that Elvis recorded at Sun Records before he went to RCA and exploded.
Yeah.
And that was one of the very first songs I ever learned to play on guitar. Yeah. When I was just a little kid and stuff. And but I usually the guys are like when they see Mr. Train come up on the set list for the show, they get pretty excited. They're like, "Oh yeah, we get to jam on this one a little bit,"
Well, it's a bluesy song.
It is. It is.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so it has that. It definitely has that bluesy, like rockabilly kind of sound to it, And Sam Phillips down there at Sun Records, the owner of Sun Records, he always said that was his favorite song that Elvis recorded while he was at Sun.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. He said that was his favorite one. Of course, the fact that he was co-writer of the song probably didn't.
Oh, that makes a world of difference.
Probably didn't hurt that none, But
the wallet got a little bit fatter.
Yeah, just a little bit. So, but that's how in a non-Reader's Digest version, that's how I got into it. So.
Other than Elvis, who was your main influence? To really get a rockin' and rollin' in this type of thing.
I was always a huge fan of Raul Donner, which was a rock and roll singer that come out of Chicago in the late 50s, early 60s, and he put his first record out when he was like 16 years old. Yeah. And but he sounded a lot like Elvis.
Yeah.
A lot. And he was 8 years younger than him, And so he was actually, a first generation rock and roll fan.
Yeah.
That happened to hit it big in recording or whatever, and and he had a recording career from 1958 all the way up until 79, 80. I think is when he put his last record out, and then he passed away in 84 when he was only 41 years old.
Yeah.
He had lung cancer, and it just he didn't do any recording or anything the last couple of years he was alive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm real good friends with both of his sons. They're both in music and stuff, and have their own career things going on and stuff, and and them guys are like just extended brothers to me,
Yeah.
And but that was always one of my biggest influences. Between besides Elvis or whatever, I loved everything that he recorded, and I've got everything that he recorded.
All the 45s. And
I got all of his 45s, all of his records. I even got a couple of the acetates that they put out of a couple of his records and stuff. I mean, if it's been released, I got it.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool, though. It's
right, and but. According to his sons, there's a bunch of recordings that he did that ain't been released yet. So maybe one of these days they'll be able to get them out and get them, because I've heard a couple of them.
Yeah.
And man, they're good. And I'm like, man, these really should have been released when he was alive.
So his boys have the master tapes.
They have a lot of them. Yeah. I know it's I keep telling them, I'm like, you guys need to do a box set for your dad, man. You need to do a box set.
Yep.
I was like, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Something more to add to the collection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Ralph sounded so much like Elvis. Even, I mean, just talking and singing and stuff. I mean, that was just his normal voice.
Mm-hmm.
But he sounded so much like him that in 1981, Warner Brothers made a movie about Elvis called This Is Elvis. And they got the idea for the movie from an album that Ralph put out in 1979 that was called 1935, 1977, I've Been Away for a While Now. And it was a record that Ralph put out as a tribute to Elvis. Basically, he was like Elvis telling his life story.
Yeah.
From like the beginning until till the end, basically.
Yeah.
And it would have snippets of songs, Elvis songs in there. There was like 50 of them that he recorded with Elvis's original band, Scotty and DJ and the Jordanaires and all them guys for this album. And them guys came back in and they played their parts just like they did originally, and stuff. But he did the narrating on it as he was Elvis, telling Elvis's story.
Yeah.
Well, Warner Brothers liked that album so much, I guess, that they got the idea to make this movie, and they basically did the exact same thing, but they did it on film.
Okay.
So they hired Rao to come in and do the narrating as Elvis, again, basically telling his life story just over video clips and recreations and stuff like that. And that was one of the last big projects that he did before he got too sick to really do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great movie when it came out in 1981. So it was a really good one. It was in the movie theaters. It was,
really?
It was a
It probably
big motion picture.
Because Elvis, he wasn't gone that long.
Right.
77?
Yeah.
4 years?
Yep.
They put this out, so everything was, people wanting
Oh
more.
yeah.
They,
and now they got it out on DVD and everything like that. So
I've probably seen it.
Oh, probably at some point. Yeah.
Because I'm big into music documentaries and other types of documentaries and stuff. So yeah,
It was a good one because they actually had some of Elvis's friends and stuff like Charlie Hodge and Joe Esposito and all them guys. They actually played themselves in it.
Yeah.
Because they there wasn't that much of a time difference between 77 and 81, so they could recreate a lot of that stuff because they were there.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, when you're out performing and stuff, what do you think? Well, one song that you really enjoy to sing.
My favorite one that we probably do is Fame and Fortune.
Fame and Fortune.
I love that song. That was one that he put out in 1960, right after he got home from the Army, and it was on his first single after he got home from the Army. It was on the B side. On the A side, they had Stuck on You, which went to #1. It had already sold 1 million copies before he even recorded it, so there was already advance orders for it. So he had a gold record before he even walked in the studio to record it, So, but
the problems.
I know, right? Yeah.
Especially a gold
so rough, so rough.
He had it rough, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, nobody in the world's got more gold and platinum records than him, so.
It's true.
And nobody's sold as many records as he has, so. I think the last time I checked, I think they had his updated count on record sales worldwide. It was it was 1.7 billion records sold. And there ain't even nobody that's even come close to 1 billion records sold yet.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, so he's almost at 2 billion records sold.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think they said something along the lines that he sold more records than the Beatles, Rolling Stones, and Michael Jackson combined. That's insane. That's insane, man.
It was fun because this has been a while back ago. I just punched it up. So how many records has ABBA sold?
Yeah.
I guess it's like 300 million.
Really?
Yeah. Of course, with Elvis, they had the 45s.
Oh, yeah.
And all their, their big albums and stuff like it.
Yep.
Dude, that's 300 million is a lot of records.
Well, yeah, it is.
A lot of records.
It sure is. That just means there's a lot of fans out there.
Well, I'm one of them.
There you go. See? That's what I'm saying.
But I've only bought one brand new ABBA record, which is their last one.
Well, you contributed to that 300 million.
I think so.
See? You did your part.
Yeah. Of course, going to record stores, you see an ABBA record, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And I've actually picked up a couple that were still sealed.
Oh, wow.
I think the first one and possibly their second one or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you put it on, man, it's just
Oh, I know. I've bought a couple Elvis records over the years
it's like such a crisp.
that were still sealed or were, and of
Yeah.
course, then and then the '80s and stuff. I bought a lot of them that were brand spanking new. That never been. They were brand new at the record shop.
Yeah.
So. But I've bought some that's like from it's been from like the '70s and the '60s and stuff, and they had never been open, and it's like that you can't beat that sound.
No, you can't.
You can't.
I mean, there's really not even a crackle. You put it on, you hear like the air and stuff from
Yep.
where the needle hits the vinyl.
Yep.
Then it goes to nothing.
See, the cool thing is about Elvis's recordings from the '50s and into the late '60s anyway. He was the one to approve all the final mixes before they were released. So when you buy that 45 of Elvis singing Hound Dog, that sounded exactly the way he wanted it to sound.
Yeah.
Not how the engineer wanted it to sound or whatever. And it sounded the way he wanted it to sound.
Yeah.
And he was real picky about it. He was the first artist to ever do that.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually pretty much the first artist to ever be his own producer in the studio right out the gate. I mean,
Yeah.
but Sam Phillips, at Sun Records, Sam taught him to be that.
Oh, really?
He's like, this is your music.
Yeah.
You basically invented rock and roll. Nobody knows it better than you.
Yeah.
Don't let them tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
Like, you do it how you want to do it.
He's got that ear. He had that ear
Yeah.
of what he wanted
And
people to.
he had no problem doing 50 takes of a song to get it the way he wanted it to sound, to match what he hears in his head.
Mm-hmm.
So he had no problem doing that.
And he was a hell of a guitar player too.
He could jam on the guitar.
A lot of people don't realize
And
how
a lot
good
of
he
people
was.
don't because he always, because he played rhythm guitar most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But when he would pick his moments, he could jam on an electric guitar.
He could rip it.
Oh, he could, and but he just really didn't because he didn't have to.
Yeah.
But,
He had guys behind him that can really.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, he had Scotty Moore for the first 18 years, and then he hired James Burton. I mean, come on, man. I'm like,
Yeah.
you have the original guy who invented rock guitar.
Yeah.
For 18 years, and then you got one of the people who learned from the original. So that. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What I thought was pretty cool, what they did back with Sun, with all the artists and stuff, they would all tour together.
Yeah, a lot of them, they would do package tours. So, Elvis, it wasn't very often, until in like 56, 57, where he would literally, they would put him out on the road as a one-man show, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, they would usually have something like along the lines of like a comedian or something that would come out and kind of talk to the crowd a little bit before the show or something, this, that, and the other. But as far as other acts playing, once 56, 57 come around, it really wasn't. But when he was at Sun in 54 and 55, they would put him on what they were called. They were like the hayride tours from the Louisiana Hayride, because he was under contract with them for a year and a half.
Oh, was he?
That's when he started down there, and they loved him down there. So he had to perform like I think it was every Saturday for 52 weeks. So no matter where he was at on the road, he always had to make sure he was back down there, and he could only miss, I think, 2 or 3 shows in that year's time with your contract. So they would get down there, but a lot of the people that also played on the hayride, they would go on tour with what they would put these little package tours together, Sunwood and stuff like that. So, like when Johnny Cash first come out, Elvis had already been at Sun for about a year or so, but they had put him on some of the tours with Elvis, as like an opening act or whatever and stuff, and he played a lot of them.
Cry, cry, cry.
Carl Perkins.
Yeah.
Carl Perkins came on after Elvis and at Sun, and he went on tour with Elvis quite a few times and stuff. About the only Sun artist that Elvis never toured with was Jerry Lee Lewis, because Jerry Lee didn't start there until well after Elvis went to RCA.
Yeah.
But
Maybe that was a good thing.
might have been, might have been.
Because anybody knows Jerry Lee Lewis is.
Oh, I know.
Whew,
Yeah, I don't know how he would have handled not being the one to finish the shows.
Yeah, I know. 'Cause, I mean, that'd be a hard act to follow too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Personal life.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, I got a bunch of his records too. So
I think I only have one album's like his golden hits or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's got everything on it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Just like Little Richard.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a bunch of his records too.
I mean, to me, when I hear Little Richard, right there is what I think. Because as you can see, a lot of my music is the heavier stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his vocals can do it all.
Oh yeah.
Little Richard's, because because a lot of artists will say he's got the best rock vocal. How he sings, how he puts everything out.
Right. Well, I mean, and Little Richard, he was basically, when you listen to his music, especially when you listen to, like, say, anything that he recorded, like Long Tall Sally, or Rip It Up, or
I Hear You Knocking.
Or even like Ready Teddy, stuff that he brought out, and then like maybe like a year later or something, like say Elvis went and recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely tell the difference between his version and Elvis's version, because his version has more of an R&B sound to it, that rhythm and blues, and he was an awesome R&B singer.
Yeah.
Like, of course R&B back then ain't like R&B now. R&B back then, it literally was rhythm and blues. I mean, it was the precursor to rock and roll.
And he put that kick.
But then you listen to like Elvis's version, where he took a lot of the R&B stuff out and just was straight rocking it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Jerry Lee and Little Richard and all them guys, they all sang different types of music.
Yeah.
They all did like the R&B and the rock and roll, and they also they recorded like some country stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and they recorded gospel.
Yeah.
Little Richard put out a couple gospel albums because he in the mid '60s, I think it was, he decided to just quit singing rock and roll or whatever, and he went straight to singing just gospel music. And and it sounded really good.
And didn't he become like a pastor or something like that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then I mean he eventually drifted back into rock and roll as well.
Yeah.
But he never left the gospel part of it after that point. I mean, he so he would get out.
Still dabbled.
Yeah, he would. He would still go on like some of the rock and roll oldies tours and stuff like that. Like Fats Domino did,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody. So I mean,
I mean, I listen to music like I'll listen to Zeppelin or whatever, like off their first record.
Mm-hmm.
It's a raw record.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine going to a club, like a small club, and that's playing. Court, you hear it now.
Right.
It's weird of me, I guess. It's like, man, I can imagine myself standing there back in '69, hearing this stuff just blaring through the speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's me listening to it now.
Right.
It's like, and you could probably get the same thing out of Elvis, because you see like the old video clips of him on the Ed
Sullivan. And
Ed
stuff,
Sullivan show. It's like, man, I can see that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, maybe it's weird of me.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's really not. You can put yourself in that situation, in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it. Believe me, we relive it pretty much about every show that we do, So I'm like, there's a lot of times where I'll think about that. Like I played this show back in I think it was 2008, and I hired the Jordanaires,
Mm-hmm.
which sang backup for Elvis. I hired them to come do a show with me, and it was cool. I mean, them guys were awesome. I mean, they really were. They were amazing, and they would just talk like before the show and stuff backstage, you know, they would just talk about all these stories about all these people they sang with, because they actually sang backup on more number one hits than any group in history.
Really?
Yeah, because that, you know, after because they were, you know, they were a gospel quartet,
Mm-hmm.
and Elvis loved them. I
Yeah.
mean, he really did, and he wanted more than anything to have them sing backup for him on his songs if he ever hit it big.
Yeah.
Well, when he signed with RCA,
You're coming with me.
he hit it big, and he got a hold of him, and he said, I want you guys on my records. And they're like, okay, well, they had never sang anything but gospel.
Yeah.
So, but Elvis loved gospel music.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it, loved it,
Well,
loved
he
it.
released a
And
few.
he knew pretty much every gospel song under the sun. No matter how obscure or how old it was, he knew it.
Yeah.
But he got the Jordanaires. Well, once the Jordanaires were starting to sing on his records, then everybody wanted them.
Yeah.
Everybody.
It's like, oh no.
So they were so busy doing this recording session, this recording session, this recording session. They sang with everybody, you know, from, you know, Ricky Nelson to Patsy Cline to, you know, to George Jones. They sang with everybody, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But they always would drop everything if Elvis needed them to record something or go on the road with him.
Yeah.
So that was always their top priority, you know.
Yeah.
But I did this show with them, and they were telling me all these stories and stuff. When it came time we got out there on the show, and I come up there, and we was getting ready to do "Don't Be Cruel," you know. And of course they all came up behind me, you know, two on this side, right behind me on each side of me, and they were getting ready to do the song with me. And the only thing I could keep thinking was, man, I'm like, this so reminds me of when Elvis did Ed Sullivan in '57, and he had the Jordanaires up behind him singing with him, and I'm like, that is so cool. I was like, you know, man, I mean, it was a feeling that I can't describe. And we did that, and we did Love Me, and that was another one that he did, and we did oh man, what was it? We did Don't. That was a song. That was the first time I had ever done it in a concert. That was a number one hit that he had in '58, right, you know, when he had left for the Army.
Yeah.
And that was the one. Gordon Stoker, who was the leader of the Jordanaires, he asked me, he said, "Can we do Don't?" I was like, "We can do any song you want, man." I was like, "You tell me what you want to do." I said, "I ain't gonna tell you no." I was like, "If you want whatever song you want to do, we'll do it."
That's when you go, I know it.
Yeah. And they was like, "Well, can we do Don't?" And I was like, "Yeah, we can do Don't." So we did it that night.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it was amazing. And I just...
Was that the last time you've ever done it? Or?
You know what? I don't think I've done it since then. And that was one of his big hits, but I don't think I could make it any better than what it was that night.
Yeah.
I don't. Because them guys, they were just, their vocals, man, it was like 1958 all over again. Like, they were just so smooth, and I'm like, man.
Those harmonies, man.
Oh, you couldn't beat them. Couldn't beat them, man.
But that was pretty cool.
Oh, it was.
You know.
It was just, you know, two here, and it's like, wow. I'm like,
now, was you wearing your gold?
You know, actually, I don't think I was wearing the gold jacket for that part of the show. I was wearing one of my other sport jackets. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, I was. Yeah, because I was during the first set when we did that, and then usually I bring the gold jacket out for the second set. So
that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, everybody always seems to love it, you know. So gotta have it.
Now, Farrah's. I don't know if I. All right. What do you think Elvis's his best song he has ever recorded?
Oh man, it'd be hard to pick. It'd be hard to pick just one, because a lot of times it just depends on what mood you're in when you hear it. You know, it's like, oh man, like a song sounds so good, or you know, I don't know. To be honest, it would have to be one of the best songs he ever recorded, like vocal wise and stuff. Would have to be something that he did from probably the early '60s or whatever. You know, it had to be one of his ballads that he put out in '61, '62 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, It's Now or Never was always one of the great, you know, vocal songs, and that was one of his biggest selling records he ever put out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really hard to pick just what would be the best one. And of course, his gospel songs were incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you could just tell he was all into it when he would sing it. So I don't know, man. It'd be hard to just pick, which one was his best one. I mean, because it depends on the day, I reckon.
No, the other day, we have like one of those Alexa balls or whatever. You can tell it to play something.
Uh-huh.
I said, play Elvis. I never heard this song before. I got stung.
Oh yeah, that was from 1958. That was on the flip side of One Night with You.
Yeah. I said, what's the name of this song?
Yeah,
You
we used to do that one a lot. We haven't done it for a while. We might have to start doing that one again. Yeah, we used to do it all the time. Yeah, we might have to start doing
It's
that
on
one
like
again.
a 2.5 minute song.
They're all are.
They're all like boom, boom.
Every one of them's quick. What are you talking about?
But yeah, then I got on my phone. I was like, I want to hear it again.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. There's something about that bass.
Mm-hmm.
It's got that like that jazzy type.
Well, yeah.
It's like,
if I remember right, I think Hank Garland was the one that played bass on it, because I don't think Bill was available for that session. That was recorded at the session where Elvis was home on leave from the Army after basic training in AIT. He come home for like 2 weeks, before they shipped him over to Germany.
Yeah.
And of course, RCA wanted to get him into the studio to record some songs, so they could release them every so often while he was gone. And then that way, by the time he came back, they would be ready for another new record, Yeah. And that was one of them. I think that was the first release that they put out after he had left for the service.
It's a good song.
It is, man. It's a rocker. It really is.
It's weird though, because I just said play Elvis, and it played out of all his songs. It played that one.
Yeah.
It must have been they must knew you was coming in here.
I guess, I don't know, man. Yeah. They didn't play. I'm surprised they didn't play "Suspicious Minds" or something like that.
I like that song's so good too.
Yeah, Elvis.
Just that little guitar like ding, ding. It's so good, and it's crystal clear on how he plays it.
Oh yeah.
Then it just
see the thing about that song was, when you listen to the original 45 of it, Elvis didn't like it. Because the mix of it that he approved, they changed it and then released it. And when he heard it, he didn't like it.
He goes, oh.
So he would kind of, when he would do it live, when he would start doing it live, he would do it more like the way that he wanted it. Yeah. But it wasn't until that 30 number one hits album came out in 2003.
Yeah.
Well, they went back and they had remastered that. They remastered all of them. But they remastered that one in particular to the original mix that Elvis approved.
Okay.
So the version that you hear on it, sound-wise, like mix-wise, like the same exact song, but mix-wise, that's the mix that Elvis originally wanted.
It's more about mono.
Yeah, but it's got that, it like everything. When you really listen to it, like if you listen to the original 45, and then you put that version on right after it, you can tell a difference in night and day in the sound of it, and it's like, wow, man, like it sounded awesome. And I'm like, now I get why he was mad about it.
It's like that song, A Little Less Conversation.
Yeah, where they actually did the remix.
Was it the JXL?
Yeah,
dude, that song slams.
It was his first number one. It was his first number one hit. For years, because when it came out in 2002, 2003, it went to number one for 3 weeks on the U.S. Billboard Rock Chart, and it was number one when that 30 number one hits album come out, and they had to slide it in as a bonus cut because it was this current number one in the country.
Yeah, you have to put it on there.
Yeah. They was like, oh, we got an extra one to put on here now. So yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going out and buying the original. I bought the CD single of it. I bought the 45 single of it when it came out, and I was like, it was awesome listening to the weekly countdown on radio or whatever for the top hits in the country. And them talking about Elvis at number one with A Little Less Conversation. I'm like, that's my boy. I was like, that's right.
Years gone by, and he's still putting that out. And it was a good mix, man.
Yeah, it was really good. It did a lot better than the
Yeah.
original release of it. The original release, it was a B-side
Yeah.
because it was a movie song from the late '60s, and it was a B-side cut that didn't even make. I think it made it to like 78 or something on the top 100. When it came out, the A-side did a lot better, but it didn't do that much because it didn't get that much airplay.
Yeah.
Well, the remix got all kinds of airplay, and it got in movies and everything else.
Well,
and it basically was like the carrying theme song in that Ocean's 11 remake that they did with George Clooney and all of them. You heard it through the whole movie, and I was like, that's cool.
I mean, it is a pretty good movie.
It was
to have that on.
It
there.
was. I mean, it really was. Yeah, it was the perfect mix,
Yeah. It sounded good.
Yeah, it did. It sounded real good.
Let's see if I got these right. Yep. Got some albums to show you.
Oh yeah, what you got?
Oh, there's some good one here. Well, The Circle Be Unbroken. This has like, I don't know if you've ever seen this.
I think I have.
It's got the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. It's got everybody on it. Who country and all kinds of stuff. It's like a double album.
Yeah. I was looking at that. I was like, oh, it's got 2 albums.
Yeah. It's well, they got the song Orange Blossom Special. All kinds of stuff on here about it.
Wow.
Cannonball Rag.
Wow. Yeah, it's got some good ones on there.
We got the Grand Ole Opry song. I mean, there's a little bit of everything on there.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
And believe it or not, that is a hard record to find.
Well, I believe it because I know that I've seen pictures of it before, and I've never seen it in a record shop though.
Yeah.
Yeah, The End of the World. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of good ones on there.
Yeah, I think Nitty Gritty Dirt Band is the main hard hitter on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did good on that one.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
And here's one. Here's a smasher.
Oh, well, I only got a couple copies of it.
Oh, just a couple. And this is a big one too.
That was his last #1 album until the 30 #1 hits album come out.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Because that concert there for that album, the concert when it showed live, over 1 billion people worldwide watched it.
Yeah.
And it was the largest watched concert in history, and it was also the first anything to be shown by satellite.
See that, folks? That's the very first satellite, and it probably looked just like that.
It probably did.
But yeah, it's got the good ones on here.
Yeah. Yeah. See,
It's got the theme to 2001: Space Odyssey is the first song.
Yeah, he used that from about 1970, 71 on to kick off his shows at the beginning of it.
Yeah. And of course, C.C. Ryder, that's an oldie but goodie.
Oh yeah.
And Burning Love.
Yeah, Johnny Be Good. Yeah, he did a bunch of good ones on there.
And he did it his way, well, my way.
Yep.
It's all on here.
Yeah, Long Tall Sally, Whole Lot of Shaking Going On,
Oh,
Big
yeah.
Hunk of Love, An American Trilogy.
That's a good one.
That was always one of my dad's favorite Elvis songs. He loved that song.
Yeah.
And come to find out, it was also one of when I was talking to the Donner Boys one night when I was up there visiting them in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was one of their dad's favorite songs too.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a band called Man of War.
Yeah.
They came out in the 80s and stuff like that. They actually did a song, American Trilogy, and the dude's a phenomenal singer. Phenomenal. Eric Adams.
I've heard of them, and I've heard some of the stuff that they've done and everything.
Yeah. Most of it's, the heavy metal and stuff like that, but they did an American Trilogy, and his voice is just stupid good. And he, he's actually sang opera.
Yeah.
On records and stuff.
I was gonna say I know he had a heck of a range, man.
Yeah.
Between what he could do.
Yeah, Eric Adams.
Yep.
Here's a good one.
Well, I bought that one too when it came out.
Hey, me too.
I bet you did.
Yeah, because I watched the documentary of it.
Yeah.
It's like
it was really good.
Yes. I think it was on HBO.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, it's a good one.
It always killed me in some of these pictures when they would go to do the colorization. they'd never get his eye color right on him.
Look
He
like
had blue eyes, and they'd always like, they look brown.
they are brown.
I know, right?
And they put the look like he got in a fight. Got his eyes blacked. Yeah.
Well, his eyes always were kind of dark underneath here. Now he got that from his mother though.
Yeah.
Hers was always like that. I don't know whatever.
So it's one of them. But yeah, treble guitar man. I mean, it's all on here.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of them on there that we do. So.
Lord, Miss Claudia.
Oh yeah, we like that one. We jam on it pretty good too. We blues it down a little bit though. We really get into it when we do it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good stuff. It's a good soundtrack.
Yeah.
Vinyl.
It was a really good album when it came out.
Yeah. Oh.
So, what you got?
This is the one.
I'll tell you what.
The King in the Ring.
This is probably one of the best albums of his that they've put out in the last few years, and they did this for the I think it was the 50th anniversary of the '68 comeback special.
Yes.
Because I bought it when it came out too, and and this was the last time that he played live with Scotty and DJ Fontana, his original bandmates. Because after this, they he decided that he was going to go back on the road and go touring again, and he wanted them to keep going with him, and the Colonel didn't. So the Colonel basically gave them an offer that wasn't very good at all.
Yeah.
So they declined, and then that way the Colonel made it basically where Elvis is like, okay, you pick whoever you want for your new band.
But you can't pick these guys.
Yeah, but that is who he wanted though. He didn't want anybody but Scotty and DJ and everybody. So
I wonder why he put up with that.
It's just that generation, man. He grew up poor, from down south. You were just it was a respect thing. And people back, they were taught to show respect to people that really didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
But they were your elder, and and they they obviously they knew more about what was going on than what you did or whatever and stuff. And he just never got out of that mentality when it came to the Colonel. He would complain. He would complain a lot to the guys in the band and all that stuff, but when it came right down to it, like, he hardly ever really went off on the Colonel about anything. The one time that he did, and he fired him in the early 70s, and then basically the Colonel was like, well, that's fine, you can go ahead and do that, but I was basically, I wrote the book on how to manage a rock and roll star because you were the first one. And everybody that's going to do it after that, they learned it from me. He's like, good or bad, they learned how to do it from what I've done. And good luck finding somebody else. And he's like, oh, and by the way, here's all the money that you owe me from everything that I haven't charged you for over all these years or whatever and stuff. And Elvis is like, his dad especially was like, Elvis, we can't afford this. Like, he literally, because Colonel kept track of everything. I mean everything. And he, anything that he would consider something that Elvis should have paid for, like when it came to promotion or anything, he took care of it. He covered it for that reason, because he knew that at some point he would be able to hold that over his head. Like, that's fine. This is what you owe me now. $6 billion or whatever it was. It was crazy. So Elvis went back to him.
I'm surprised Elvis didn't have a Jimmy Hoffa thing going on.
Oh, I'm telling you, man. I mean, he could be that preacher out in Arkansas. I mean, hey. But at this concert, if you see this fellow right over here, he's kind of just sitting there beating on a tambourine or whatever stuff. He was Elvis's stunt double in a lot of his movies in the '60s. That's Lance Legault.
Really?
Okay. Now, you might recognize that name because he was the one that played the Colonel or whatever on the A-Team that was always after the A-Team all the time. He was also on Magnum P.I. on there too, as he worked for the Marines or whatever, there, and he always butted heads with Magnum all the time. Yeah, that was him before he got famous acting on his own or whatever and stuff. Yeah, he was a real good friend of Elvis's.
Who knew?
I know, right? only weirdos like me, you know, that know stuff like that.
It was weird because I believe they re-showed this '68 comeback special.
Oh yeah, they've showed it several times.
It was the first time I'd seen it. I think it was after Elvis had passed in '77. I still remember that just plain as day.
Oh man, to me that was one of the coolest specials about Elvis, and my favorite part was always the sit down part.
Yeah,
because they had this, you know, they had the sit down part and they had the stand up section of it, and you know, and they had the gospel section of it, you know, and it was kind of themed and everything, but this part, the sit down and just jam part, was always my favorite.
Yeah,
you know, especially between him and Scotty and all that,
mm-hmm.
and you know, Scotty's playing Elvis's guitar. Elvis is playing Scotty's guitar. Scotty was very, very particular about his guitar. He always took perfect care of his instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And he always reluctantly, if Elvis ever wanted to swap guitars with him or something during a show, he was always reluctant about it, because he knew that when Elvis would play, he would just go to town on it.
He'd hit them strings.
And he would. And Scotty was always like, he'd always see him kind of cringing a little bit. He's like, oh God, he's like, I'm looking away and I'm playing and I'm not looking at you over beating on my guitar. But yeah, he would jam on it. That was his '63 Super 400 that he bought.
The old Gibson.
That replaced he bought it to replace the 1950 55 56 L5s and the other Super 400 that he had. I saw that guitar in person down in Memphis one year. They had it down
big
there.
Old guitar, isn't it?
Oh man, but they're so pretty, and man, they sound so good.
Yeah, if anybody wants to listen to Elvis play guitar, listen to him play on this.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, he really kind of just cuts loose or whatever. He does that "Baby What You Want Me to Do" blues song of Jimmy Reed's, man, and he gets hooked on it. Like he just keeps playing. He goes back to it several times during that show. But this recording of it, of the songs that they picked, a lot of them was because he did 2 shows that night. Mm-hmm. He did the 6 and the 8 p.m. and basically did the exact same show twice for 2 different crowds.
Yeah.
The first one, they didn't when they aired it originally in December 3rd of '68. They took parts from the first show and the second show and combined them, you know. But they didn't take a lot of stuff from the first show because he was really nervous, really reluctant. You know, you could tell he really wasn't sure if this was a good idea, because he was going to, you know, he had been making movies for 10 years, you know, hadn't performed in front of a live concert or a live audience since 1961 when he played a benefit show in Memphis in February, and then he played at the Pearl Harbor benefit down in Pearl Harbor in '61. That was the last time he'd played a live concert, and he'd been making 3 movies a year on average until 1968. And then they decided they was going to do a special, and it was supposed to be a Christmas special. Mm-hmm. That's what the Colonel had in mind, like Andy Reid Christmas kind of stuff, you know, Elvis in a sweater, you know, and sitting there singing Christmas carols and everything. Yeah, well, Steve Bender, who and put this all together and stuff, he had a different idea. Him and Elvis, they were like conspiring. They're like, you know what, like Elvis, we need to get you back to your roots, man. Like, you're the king of rock and roll.
We're gonna throw it down,
and we need to remind people that you're the king. You know, and that's what all behind the Colonel's back. You know, the Colonel didn't know. He thought this whole time it was going to be. When he found out, he was not a happy camper about it. But Elvis, he did a couple Christmas songs or whatever. You know, he did Blue Christmas, and he did a little bit of you know, Santa Claus is back in town, just to appease him a little bit. You know, but yeah, this was wicked, and it was the highest rated show of 1968.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it.
I remember my dad telling me when he watched it live on television when they aired it. You know, he's like, it was awesome. You know, he said it was just.
Well, you know,
he said because he said you know. He said, you know, I grew up with Elvis, you know. He said, and I remember, you know, when I was a teenager, I remember, you know, that bad boy, you know, that everybody hated and stuff when he first come out, you know, and the parents hated him to death, and the church people hated him to death, and the law enforcement hated him to death and kept threatening to put him in jail, for just because he would move a leg on stage, and everything, and the police would film his shows and everything like that. Then he comes out dressed in all black leather and just rocking it out, and he's like, and he said, but when they did the thing, the second show was more. He was a lot more comfortable by that point because he's like, okay, I got this, and you can tell it when you watch. They got the DVD release of it. I think it was for like the 40th anniversary, maybe. They released the whole complete thing, both shows and everything. You watch the first one, you can see how apprehensive he is.
They were reluctant.
Yeah, and you could see by the second one how much more relaxed he is, and he's just having fun with it then. But this was an amazing special.
What does he say in Laudamus Claudia? The toenail baby or something like that.
It's the where he's like the Tarnell. That's what it was. It was because the lady's name that they mention in it, or that was what it was. It was an R&B song. Lloyd Price was the one who originally brought that out in 1953, and it was an R&B song. And Tarnell was one of them, one of them names or whatever that you would hear in an R&B song.
Yeah.
Well, that was the song that Scotty asked Elvis. He's like, when you're watching it, you'll be like, hey, let's do that, let's do Lottie Miss Claudia. He's like, you want to do Lottie Miss Claudia? He's like, yeah, let's do Lottie Miss Claudia. And Scotty always loved that Tarnell part. Yeah. He loved it. He thought that was just the funniest thing because he's like, that's the funniest name, Tarnell. Tarnell, darling, Yeah,
because it sounds like he says, my toenail, baby.
Yeah, I know it. And so then they really get into a jam on it and stuff. But, it's funny because on Blue Christmas, Elvis is playing the electric guitar. And in the studio, when they originally recorded that, he played Scotty's electric on it originally. That song and One Night with You, Elvis played electric guitar on. So that was the only two songs that
he's ever played
that he ever played the lead guitar on for the things, and he did it with both of the songs in this special.
That's cool. That's cool.
So yeah, it really is, and when they would do it live. They would do it live in '57 when they were on tour. Yeah. There's pictures of him like in his gold suit, and he's playing Scotty's guitar, and you know exactly what song he's doing because them were the ones where he's like, hey, let me borrow your guitar for a second. He would do like Bluegrass or One Night with You or something like that. Yeah. And he was playing One Night on tour in '57 before the RCA even released his record of it.
Oh, really?
They didn't release it until '58 when he went into the Army.
But he already gave people a little dose of it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a killer special.
Oh yeah, I love that record. I play it. I pull it out and play it quite a bit.
Yeah. There you go.
Bad Company.
Yep.
Oh man.
This is their first one. This is Free 2.0.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, this here was a pretty good record when it came out, man.
Yeah, no doubt. I got a buddy of mine he's got the same exact one. Yeah. So I've heard him play it quite a few times.
Yeah, this is Can't Get Enough, Rock Steady.
Oh yeah.
Ready for Love, Don't Let Me Down. I mean, all those songs are so good on it. I think Moving On is the hidden gem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of them ones where it kind of catches you off guard a little bit when you hear it, and you're like, oh man, that was one of the really good ones on there. Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, it's a good one. Like I say, it's a swan song. This is the first pressing of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I was looking at, and I was like, wow, that's the original release of it. Yeah,
because the lady who I got when I really got back into the records and stuff, what really pushed me over the edge. She goes, I got a bunch of records down in the basement and stuff. You want to buy them? I went, well, see what you got.
Right.
I went fiddling through them. I went, holy cow. It had Mountain in there, and stuff like that. And this, I was like, oh my gosh, well, how much? We came up with a price. My buddies met me here and stuff. I said, look at these records. It was, it was probably about 100, 125 records.
Wow.
Yeah, 125, I think, for it. I was like, oh my God, it's like dollar record.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah. Can't beat it.
and if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be in the situation that I'm in now.
Well, they always say that there's one person that you can usually pinpoint, that puts you where you're at.
Hmm.
I mean, and for you,
first and foremost,
for you, that if it weren't for her, yeah, you wouldn't be
Yeah.
wouldn't be where you're at now.
yeah, with this monstrosity. But yeah, this is a pretty good one. If you like a little bit of Billie Holiday,
Billie Holiday, that's a good one there.
yeah, this is her greatest hits.
Yeah,
So it's got all the
all the good ones.
all of her hard hitting
Yeah,
hits.
yeah.
But yeah, you name it, it's on here. I think it's a 2 vinyl set. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was because I remember when this one came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her voice is just so perfect.
Oh man.
You know?
Yeah, she was always had some incredible songs.
Yeah.
Mm.
Another female artist I think just has a phenomenal voice is Edie Gormel. Remember Steve and Edie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know how they always did the duets and stuff?
Yep.
It was funny because
Steve and Edie, boy, I hadn't heard that name in a long time.
yeah, Edie Gormel, she asked a guy here at Bainbridge, you remember, Jesse? Used to sell records and stuff.
Yeah.
Jesse Moore.
Yeah.
Went there and asked him, said, you got any Edie Gormel records? He goes, I think I do. Whenever I got a look, and I went, oh, I had to get them.
Ones without Steve on it?
Right.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
because usually pretty much all of them you see, it's both of them. You don't see any solo ones hardly.
But yeah, because I was looking around, I don't go out and try to find it.
Right.
I like that whole excitement of, like, oh, don't have that one.
A lot of times you never know what you'll find.
Yeah. And my wife, Ann, she huge fan of her.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, understandably, the woman can really flat out sing.
Oh, yeah.
I got them to the house. I listened to them. I went, I don't know if I ought to give these to her. I did anyways, but.
Well, if you got them, she got them. So they,
Well,
saying.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I've always told her, I said, if there's anything you want to listen to, some hard stuff, I can bring it in. You can listen to it.
Yeah.
But, she has her own collection,
Oh, yeah.
of music that's really,
Right.
that
The stuff she digs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, not everybody's in the Slayer, Motorhead,
Right.
Iron Maiden and stuff like that. But,
Yeah.
me, I can listen to anything. Like I said, I got Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
If I feel like that mood, I'll open the door. It was funny because the grandbabies were here, I think Mother's Day, and they're out there bouncing on the trampoline and stuff. I said, "Hey kids, you want to listen to some music?" Yeah. I said, "All right." I grabbed my Boston CD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, their first one. Put that on there. Oh, I like that song. It's like I don't like that one as well. Yeah, doing, doing. I said,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not even really listening.
Yeah, you're just hearing it. You're not really listening to it.
It was a song, Hitch a Ride. They weren't really
Right.
a fan of because, it has its little things and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I said, wait till the end. When it gets toward the end, then that's when it really kicks in gear.
Right.
I said, you'll really love it. And it started in, with that. And they said, oh, that is good.
Wow.
Yeah, I on the way home from work today, I was thinking, I was like, man, I'm going to throw this out. Just an oddball question.
You have an oddball question?
Well, amongst 1,000 others I ask, I guess. But something that has nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be an oddball question.
Yeah. Aliens. You think aliens are inhabiting the Earth?
Well,
Well,
I'll tell you what. I mean, growing up and stuff, when I was a kid, you'd always hear about them, and you always seen books about them and stuff, and pictures that people took in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, and you'd always hear the stories about, like Betty and Barney Hill and all them and everything. I mean, hey, anything's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, Wright Pat ain't that far from here, and supposedly that's where they put that Roswell craft at. So
It's funny that you mentioned that because my old boss, we always thought he was just crazy as hell, which he was. but because he was in the service, I think he did the Army and the Marines. He was crazy. Anybody puts himself through that,
I know a few people that did that, except they did the Marines, then did the Army or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we were just sitting around BSing one day. So, you were in the service stuff. So, you see any crazy stuff? He goes, well, let me tell you something. And it's like, all right. He goes, the stories you heard about for Right Pat with, the old, flying saucers and, aliens and stuff like that. He goes, I swear on my life, it's there. He goes, I seen it. That's like, on the way home, I was like, man, is he crazy? But, I mean, if you knew the guy,
Right.
you knew him.
Right.
I mean, he was a funny guy. But, who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean,
Yeah.
I like a lot of people always say, it's like to think that we would be the only ones in
Floating
not
around.
only this solar system, but all them other ones and stuff that's out there. I mean,
Thousands upon thousands.
I mean, you don't know, man.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't. Just like and if there is, they might not know nothing about us.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Maybe they're sending satellites up in the air.
It's hard to tell. I mean, sometimes I know that NASA says that they'll pick up weird stuff every once in a while on satellites from a place that's supposed to be completely quiet.
Yeah.
It's got to come from somewhere.
I know they had that big thing. I think it was in the 90s. The little Tic Tac.
Yeah.
Flying out on the outside of California along the ocean and stuff like that. So 1 minute, it'd be at 40,000 feet, and within a second, it's like 5 feet off the ocean.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's one of them things.
Well, and that's one of the things about the ocean. I mean, there's places in the ocean you can't reach the bottom end.
Yeah.
So how you gonna know?
And
It's not like you can say, well, I'm gonna go down there and check that out. Well, okay, good luck with that.
it's a distance.
Yeah, it is.
It's a distance. But I just thought I'd throw
That's
out
a random thought. Yep.
Yeah.
That was a good one though.
But I watch all kinds of documentaries on that garbage. Like how they built the pyramids.
That was always one of them things that I kind of always wondered about. I'm like,
Yeah.
because you and a lot of the stuff that ancient civilizations built, it's like, how'd they do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because like I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, a lot of that stuff, I'm like, we don't even have a way to do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, so how'd they do that?
Well, me personally, I think they were so much more, 100 times more advanced what we are now.
Kind of like Atlantis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I've always heard that was the reason why that one got done away with, because it was so far advanced that it was too far.
Yeah. Well, just like, the Sahara Desert said it was green and lush and everything else.
Yeah.
I think when the big flood hit, which was 11,000, like 200 years ago, that's what wiped out when the meteors hit the ice caps and stuff, and it really just, really offed a lot of things, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
You can only tell so much from, what you find, on Earth and stuff. You know?
It was like they were saying, a lot of the evidence on how they built the pyramids and stuff got burned up in Alexandria. When they burned the library. Mm-hmm. It's like that's where everything. I guess they kept everything there to.
And that would make sense, though.
Yeah, but I mean, you got these 80,000 ton whatever, 80 ton, right in the middle of the pyramid, and it's like 120 to 150 feet above the ground.
Right.
Like how the hell they do that?
I know it.
I mean, you're just not going to do that with vines.
No. You ain't going to do it with people putting a rope on it and having a bunch of people all together trying to drag it up the side of a pyramid or something. I don't know, man. I really don't.
That's one of I think, the world's biggest mysteries.
I always thought that was something that was always fascinating.
Well, they always said that the Cleopatra is closer to our age in time than what her time would be to the pyramids. That says a lot.
Yeah. It sure does.
So I don't know.
It's
But
hard
yeah,
to
that's
tell.
just random thoughts I have.
Yeah, I have random thoughts all the time.
But I think this may be a continuous thing I may do now. like at the end of the podcast, just something to break up
Yeah.
the monotony of what we were talking to, you know.
All right.
Maybe people will explore something else a little bit different. Maybe they have a different way of looking at things. I
Well,
don't
you
know.
never know. I mean, hey, won't know until you find out.
Well, once again, I appreciate you coming out, Aaron.
Oh man, ain't no problem. No
yeah,
problem.
It was a good time. A second time.
Yeah.
But yeah, glad you came out, took the time. You're busy. Busy day. And
Yeah, well, and I mean, we got I think our next show that's actually close to home, I think, is June 8th. We're playing Greenfield at that music festival.
Okay.
So I think what's this on a Sunday? I think we're playing from, I think 1 to 3 or something like that.
1 to 3.
Mm-hmm. So and then after that, I have no idea where we're at after that.
Tearing it down.
Somewhere, I don't know exactly where, but I know it's not close to home. So I don't get them close to home shows very much anymore, man.
I tell you what, the Jamboree's gonna have to pick it up a little bit.
I'm waiting to get back in there, so we'll see.
That's a nice little venue.
I
isn't
love
it?
playing there.
Yeah.
I do. I love playing there. Every time they get a hold of us or something like that, I'm like,
okay.
like yeah, I'm like, you give me an idea of when, and I'll make sure we ain't got nothing booked for then.
Yeah.
And we'll go ahead and come in and do it. So, yeah, I love playing there. There's been so many famous people played there over the years.
Yeah.
So you go backstage and look at that back door back there where everybody signed it over the years, and it's just like it's crazy.
Just
Lynn Anderson, everybody, just all kinds of people.
I know Paycheck's played there quite a. Of course, he's
yeah.
a Greenfield boy. That's probably where
But
close where he cut his teeth there.
there've been a lot of them that's played there over the years.
Yeah.
Loretta Lynn, I think I remember reading something about where she played there at some point back in '60s or something like that, and it's crazy. There's a wall back there that's got all these promotional pictures from a lot of the different stars that had played there over the years. Conway Twitty's up there, all kinds of people. Like George Jones. I'm pretty sure George has played there.
Oh yeah.
So and a lot of them, man.
That's back when Bainbridge had 2 bars.
Yeah, yeah,
Now there's no bars.
yeah. Well, yeah,
Which is probably a good thing.
yeah, Yeah.
People get a little crazy.
yeah. Well, they get crazy enough without it.
All you gotta do is watch the news. It's crazy
I'm
enough.
telling you, man.
But anyways, I appreciate you coming out, taking
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, ain't no problem, man. I'll come by anytime you want.
And you pulled up in a hot rod.
Well, it was a nice day today, so I've been getting it out as much as I can. So, yeah.
What year did you say it was?
1955 Ford Fairlane.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's my baby. I love it.
sounds good.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
She runs pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
Well, on that note, be kind to one another and have a good day. Later.